Hi guys! So welcome to my new YouTube channel, and don't be that surprised that I'm back. Even I knew it was bound to happen anyway sometime down the road, so here I am. And I'll probably make a video later on when I'm not so busy about why I decided to return and all this other stuff about it. But today I want to talk about a controversial book that a lot of people talked about last year. And no, it's not the book you are thinking about. That will come later. I've been talking a lot about this book on Instagram and Twitter lately. I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm very sorry it took me so long to read this. I started reading this on my birthday like a month ago, and then after that I just kind of got into a slump, so I read something else in between, and then got back to this one and started finishing that. So, at least now I finished it. I gave this book 4 stars out of 5, and I actually did like it, and I didn't really find much wrong with it like other people did, but I'm going to talk about that here. And I want to go ahead and say as well that this is my opinion. I respect other people's opinions about this book and, however they felt about it. So I'm not trying to change other people's opinions. I'm simply stating my opinion. You can respect my opinion if you'd like. You can change your opinion because of my opinion. You cannot change your opinion. Whatever you feel about this book, whatever you think about it, I respect that. Again, this is just my opinion, and this is my voice speaking out about it and why I liked this book. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So the book I just finished reading was The Black Witch by Laurie Forest. It was released by Harlequin Teen last year to a lot of controversial opinions. People found this book to be racist, homophobic, ableist, all this other stuff. At first, I just went along with those people who said so. I went along with those people who said so and was like, okay, yeah, they're right. This book is so controversial, I'm never going to read it. And then this past year, I really started thinking, well, not everyone has to have the same opinion as everybody else. Every reader can be different. They're allowed to be different. They're allowed to have different opinions. So I've always been attracted to this book, though, because of the cover. The cover is so gorgeous. And so I was very conflicted on whether or not to read it because of all these opinions I saw on social media about it. And I finally was at the bookstore. I saw it. It was the only copy they had on the shelf. I was like, what the hell? I'm going to grab it. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to read it. At first, I described this as being kind of like an experiment. But I feel like that word is actually an insult to my reading of it. Because, the plot of this book is just really, really interesting to me. And it's a big book, and I love the pages of it. So I really wanted to take the chance and read it, see what happens. And I was fully prepared, if I didn't like the book, because I ended up having the same opinions as everybody else, then I didn't like the book. If I liked it and had different opinions from everybody else, then fine, that's fine. As it turns out, of course, I had a different opinion to it. And my opinion goes against everybody else's opinion. So fair warning, I will probably be spewing word vomit about all this. And again, I'm going to reiterate, this is my opinion. I'm not trying to change other people's opinions. I respect your opinion if you don't want to read it, if you find it harmful. Just, every reader is different. We have to remember that. So, alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with the racial topics that are present in this book. There's many different races. There are quite a few, but some of them don't really get mentioned that often, so I'm just going to really talk about the ones that are more present in this book than others. So we have the Aryan mages. They have shimmering skin, black hair, and green eyes. So, and that's what our main character is, Ellerin Gardner. She is a Gardnerian mage. Then we have Icarals. They're kind of like, well, I'll go ahead and say they're described as like demonic creatures. They can have glowing eyes. They have wings. Sometimes they can have a bad smell. And they're considered, just the bottom of the food chain because they're so disgusting looking and creepy. And Icarals are actually after our main character, Ellerin, so there's that aspect. Then we have Lupins. They are shapeshifters, human/wolf. They are considered to be very forceful when mating, which stems off a rumor that goes around in this book. And they're always naked. They love to be naked. They see nothing wrong with it. So there's that. Then we have snake elves. This one's not really present that much in the book. The only snake elf we really see is a teacher. And there are other kinds of elves too with different elements. And the twist in the book actually stems from someone that's actually an elf. So, like, snake elves have green scales. Bootrin, they're sorceresses. They are kind of like the guards of the school. Then we have Celts, who are described as peasants. Some of them can be handsome. They're brutish. And Celts and Gardnerians are actually pitted against each other. Like, these are the main enemies, like Celts versus Gardnerians. So, that plays a big part in the book as well, because Ellerin actually gets to know a Celt that is very hostile toward her because of the history with Celts and Gardnerians. But I'll get more on that later. Then we have Selkies. The way I interpreted their description is that they're similar to mer people, I guess, but they're described as just like seals. So they have like a seal skin, but then the Selkie that's in this book is like, looks like a human, but they can't speak English. So it's kind of back and forth in that, and like if what they really are. In this book, they are treated as pets and they get abused, and I will talk more about that later. I'm going to go ahead and say that there is a gender aspect that I think some people found very controversial, where it concerns Gardnerian women. So on page 19 of the book, we have a quote here where it says, quote, "He's always grousing about how unfair the Gardnerian power structure is toward women, and he's right. Few Gardnerian women have wand magic, my powerful grandmother being a rare exception. Almost all of our powerful mages are men, our magic passing more easily along male lines. This makes our men the rulers in the home and over the land." And this also goes into the fact that wand fasting for women is very, very important. And that brings me to Aunt Vivian. Okay, so she's controlling, and I found her, very appropriate to dislike. So I don't really like her. And she spews off like cult-like qualities regarding the wand fasting because she considers it so sacred. And it's every time I read her quotes when it came to wanting Ellerin to be wand fasted, it just reminded me of like this creepy cult. Like, women had to be wand fasted if they were Gardnerian and just become a part of this group and live a certain way. So it was very, very creepy. So the way I see the whole Gardnerian thing is just it's very cult-like with the people and how they're supposed to live, how they're told to live. I want to go ahead and talk about Selkies versus the real world. What we see is we do see a Selkie that's in this cage in like the marketplace, and she's just in pain. She's screaming, and Ellerin like really feels this emotional connection toward her, and she actually gets to see that Selkie later on in the book and rescue her, which I'll get more on that later. But what I'm talking about is connections to the real world. I'm talking about, like, we have lab testing all over the world. We have countries that have caged animals, caged dogs for food and testing all over. And I found a lot of real world connections from this book because it's like mirroring what we have in our world. We're humans. We don't have magical powers. But elements in this book are basically mirror elements of what we have in our world right now. And we can't escape this world. We are aware that this world is completely shitty, So we can't exactly read books and ignore the fact, oh, the world is perfect. We don't have to worry about anything. Yes, we do. There are a lot of things to worry about, and it's not really healthy for us to actually ignore it. And I think that's part of the problem with this book is that it's so controversial, according to people, about racial topics and how Ellerin acts toward the different races. And this happens all over. I mean, whether we see it ourselves or not, we've probably accidentally, without knowledge, been cruel to other people that's different from us. It doesn't have to be about race. It can be about, a hobby or or a person or what they do. So that's the one thing I don't understand is that people are just really ragging on Ellerin for being this girl who just doesn't get it. Well, she's brought up this way from her heritage, from her family. She's told how her heritage is supposed to act. And that's all she's known all her life. She's, almost 18 years old. And this is what she's been taught. It's all she's known. So she's not going to immediately snap her fingers and understand. She has a lot more to learn even after this first book. But again, all this is going to come to fruition later. I want to talk about the Icarals. They are definitely misunderstood and abused to become how they are, because we have two Icarals that Eleanor rooms with. One is Ariel, the other is Winter, and they're very battered, they're sheltered, they're angry. So on page 513 of the book, we do have a description about Ariel and what will happen to her, if things were to change or if she were to get kicked out of school. It says, quote, Ariel will have to return to Gardneria, where she will be imprisoned in the Valgard Sanatorium, and Winter will be sent back to Alsgard lands, where her people are debating whether or not to execute her kind. So they're really misunderstood. There's a part in the book where it talks about how they become who they are. They're basically worn down, they're abused. There's a scene with dragons, how they're treated the same way and worn down and abused. So it makes sense because Icarals are also supposed to be like, part dragon a little bit. So they're like this because they were made like that. And Winter and Ariel are just opposites. Ariel's like very vicious. And this is because, she was in the sanatorium. She is just broken. She doesn't feel like she has anybody. All she has are her chickens and her birds. And Winter is so closed off. She hides in her wings and is so quiet and is so scared. Like, she's scared for Ariel more than herself because she doesn't want Ariel to have to go through that again. Like, they're friends, but then it doesn't seem like they are because Ariel finds it very hard to keep friends. But these girls, they grow throughout the book. They grow to trust a little bit, and I am very curious if they will be featured in the next book after this, and how their growth will expand. But these girls, they are Icarals, but they are so misunderstood. And yes, I understand that Ellerin in the beginning was just so disgusted by rooming with Icarals, but again, this goes to growth. Ellerin learns from her mistakes. She learns the truth, though it's hard to take in, and she learns that these girls are in pain, emotionally and physically. Okay, I want to talk about the Lupins as well. So they're half wolf, half human. They are definitely misunderstood because of the rumors that go around about them. So there's a rumor going around in this book that the Lupins, like, they announce their mate to their pack, and then they take them away into the forest, mate, and like everything about them is supposed to be so forceful, but it's all just a rumor. Like, for example, we do get the rumor addressed later in the book, and Jared, one of the Lupins that's actually falling in love with Elrond's friend Aislinn, he addresses that rumor and sets the record straight, basically telling Elrond, hey, this is bullshit, like, what you've heard is not true. So Elrond and Jared are in the library. They're doing some work, and Elrond pretty much asks him. She says this quote: "There might be a reason why they're so concerned. I point out the Northern Lupin packs may be different from yours. Aislinn's father visited them and came back with some very disturbing tales." Now this is where the rumor comes in, where because Aislinn, her father, seems to witness that forcefulness of mating. "Really, what exactly did he see?" Jared asked with deep skepticism. He lays his pen down and gives me his full attention. Aislinn said that he saw one of the men get up in front of the entire pack, grab a young woman, and drag her off into the woods to... I gesture vaguely with my hand to fill in the blanks. "And you believe this?" Jared, he saw it with his own eyes. "People see what they expect to see," he says sharply, "through a filter of their own hatred and prejudice. You should realize this by now, rooming with two Icarals." "Couldn't a different pack have different ways?" I rejoined defensively. Jared shakes his head tersely. "Our pack is no different from northern packs." "But Jared, he saw it." And this is where she's cut off and where the rumor is addressed. "Here's what Aislinn's father saw," he says, cutting me off. "When two Lupins decide to take each other as life mates, one of them stands up and announces his or her desire to be with each other to the whole pack. The two then go off privately into the woods, and when they return, there's a joyful gathering to celebrate the union. Now, correct me if I'm mistaken, but this doesn't seem to be all that different from your people's traditions. Don't you have some type of religious ceremony where couples who wish to be life mates announce their intentions before friends and family, and then the couple goes off to mate with each other afterward?" I bite at my lip, my face coloring. It's embarrassing to hear him talking about mating the way he and his sister do so bluntly, but he's essentially right. "I guess it's similar, yes," I admit. "Except for just a few details, perhaps," he continues, his tone clipped. "The mutual love and affection of the couple is an absolute given, or the pack would never approve of the match." He leans back in his chair, his glowing amber eyes full of disapproval. Aislinn's father saw something beautiful and twisted into something sick and ugly, reinforcing his own unfair prejudices against us. And this is where Elrond starts to really question the things she's been told about Lupins. And this is part of her journey in learning to understand the other races and learning to accept them and learning for herself. So, the Celts. The main Celt that we're focusing on is Ivan. He is particularly handsome. He's got nice eyes. He's very hostile toward Elrond, but he's very nice to people that he can accept. We do have a description of what a Celt looks like. On page 163, it says, quote, "The Celts are not a pure race like us. They're more accepting of intermarriage, and because of this, they're hopelessly mixed." Which, by the way, I mean, I don't see how that is problematic either. That's just my brain, but whatever. I noticed that the Celts' clothing is varied as well, although uniformly not very fine. These are work clothes, homespun garb best suited for farm chores, the type I wear at home for comfort. So, Celts wear clothes that I would wear at home for comfort. I mean, it's not like we always go out and dress nicely. These are just the way the Celts live. This is their lifestyle. This is called diversity. So then we actually get an explanation for Ivan's reason for hating Gardnerians. There was a war, basically, Celts versus Gardnerians. And Ivan takes it a little bit more personally than that. So on page 517, we have Ivan and Ellerin. They're in this barn, and there's already been a lot of tension between them. Like, I'm not going to say sexual tension, but they do have feelings for each other. But there's just a lot of secrets, but that's, spoilery, so I'm not going to get into that. But Ivan and Ellerin, they kind of get into it, and Ivan explains why he really can't stand her. Like, it's so hard for him to be around her. So we start on page 516 after they talk about rescuing a dragon. Quote, I press on undaunted. If that dragon can be saved, the girls might be able to go east and others too. So here Ellerin is stating fact. She's feeling something for these other races, and Ivan gets really confused. He says, quote, he stands there for a moment looking stunned by my words. I don't understand you, he says, the expression going harsh. Why are you even thinking about this? You're a Gardnerian, and not just any Gardnerian. You're Carnissa Gardner's granddaughter, your grandmother. He pauses as if angry and struggling to find the right words all at the same time. She was a monster. So this is where the whole argument gets in, and where he reveals why he is so angry to be around a Gardnerian and to even like a Gardnerian, because we know he likes her. Inevitable. My back goes up at the word. How is my grandmother different from any other successful military leader of any race? She was wrong about many things, I count her, but she was also a great mage. Now see, Ellerin continuously wants to defend her grandmother because it's all she's known. She's been told that her grandmother is a very brave woman, and this is all she knows, like it's instinct for her to protect her family. Who killed thousands and thousands of people, his angular jaw tightens, his green eyes boring into me. Your people were just as monstrous to the Gardnerians when they were in power, I challenge. He glares at me as if struggling with strong emotions. Your grandmother, he grinds out, an unexpected fury breaking out around the edges of his words, was responsible for the death of my father. So at this moment, Ellerin starts to understand, Ivan's hatred because of his father's death and his people's death. He's very close to his people, so he feels like all Gardnerians are just bad. Except for Ellerin, which, he can't get around his head why she's talking like this about other races and actually trying to defend them. So Celts and Gardnerians have a big rivalry, so it's going to be interesting how this is faced in the next book, because obviously not every race is as understanding and learning as Ellerin is doing right now, which is another thing. This brings me into all the controversy that has been talked about with this book. I'm not going to name names on who I got these. I'm going to be talking about the controversy that has always been around this book since the very beginning, since people started reading it before it came out. So I'm going to address these controversies and explain my reasoning why I didn't see it. And once again, it's my opinion. If you've gotten this far in the video, I applaud you. If your opinion's changing, then good for you. If it's not, then good for you. I respect that. Again, respect. So, apparently people didn't really appreciate how much girl hate there was. I did see this. There's girl hate. There's Fallonbane, who's just a total bitch. She's like a female Malfoy. And, girl hate exists everywhere. I don't have a lot of girlfriends because, every girl I've ever seen is like, just so hateful. And really, what book does not have girl hate? Let's talk about Livius Gray a little bit, okay? Everyone hated Livius Gray because he's just a douche, all right? In their first meeting, Lucas and Ellerin are at this party. He dragged her away. She's never been kissed, and he just gives her her first kiss like it's nothing. They don't even know each other, and I just read that part. It's like, what? All right, so I actually agree with that. But then other things happen as well. He's so haughty in his mind, and you think you might like him at first because, we have had the book boyfriends where they're just so egotistical and then you end up loving them. But Livius Gray, no, there's no way you can love him because he's just so full of himself. He's just Lucas Gray, he's not good. Like, Ellerin just needs to get away from him, and it does get annoying when Ellerin keeps forgiving him. She keeps going back to him because, that's the only viable guy she can really be with. She can't be a Celt, all this other stuff. But no, Lucas does not deserve her. He doesn't deserve anybody. And Fallon Bane, she hates Ellerin because Ellerin and Lucas are supposed to be wand-fasted, but Fallon wants to wand-fast with Lucas. So the hate is viable. It's like, Fallon can have Lucas. Like, we don't want him. There's a moment in the book that I did find bothersome. I didn't really appreciate it. So there's a moment with Lucas and Ellerin where they're together, they're playing music, and something changes. Quote, he twines his arms around me once more and brings his lips to mine. Lulled by the music, I let myself fall into his kiss, into the deep warm pool of his caresses. Sounds sweet, right? As he kisses me, a strange, delicious tingle starts at the soles of my feet and dances around my ankles. I shift my weight, reveling in the sensation as Lucas pulls me closer. He smells wonderful, like pine boughs in deep forest, warm as midnight fire. I sigh and let myself fall deeper. Here's where it gets tricky. I run my fingers back through his hair. I can feel a smile on my lips as I lightly trace along the thick hair of his sideburns, the soft bare skin just behind his ear. Lucas groans and kisses me harder. Suddenly, the sparking around my ankles pulls in tight, and the image of a tree made of dark lighting flashes through my mind, power arcing from the soles of my feet to the tips of my fingers in a fierce, branching wave of pleasure. I shudder and cry out, overwhelmed by the powerful sensation. I push away from Lucas. What was that? I gasp as a dark echo pulsates hot in my core, my legs now unsteady. Lucas holds on to me, his eyes full of surprise. I don't know, he says, his voice deep and ragged. I've never felt anything like that before. His expression shifts from shock to hunger, and not the good kind of hunger. He lunges at me, claiming my mouth, and pushes his body hard against mine. I gasp as the image of the tree flames back to life, dark, sinuous branches snaking through my body, his hands all over me. But it's too much, too fast, like being caught in the ocean's undertow. I try to move away from him, to push away from the black fire, but he tightens his hold on me. I wrench my mouth from his. Lucas, I force out, stop. I want to go. He pulls back just barely and gives me a look so feral that it fills me with serious alarm. My eyes dart nervously toward the exit. Abruptly, Lucas steps away, eyes predatory. He holds up his hands in mock surrender as his mouth curls into a slow, dark grin. He bows to me and holds out his hand for me to take. So the way I picture this is, after he suddenly becomes an animal and kisses her like that, with that mock grin, it's like, kind of like the sarcastic, smarty smirk type of grin. Like, the guy knows that she's going to come back. She can't resist him. But that scene actually bothered me because, it actually surprised me. Like, at this point, I did think Lucas was a good guy, and I was starting to grow on him. But after that, I just told myself, it's like, no, Ellerin cannot go there. So, yeah, we can't trust Lucas. So, hopefully Ellerin just stays away from him. So, there was another controversial topic people didn't like regarding Ariel's description. So, people didn't find this description very nice. They thought it was very ableist. Quote, Ariel, on the other hand, looks like something out of a nightmare. She's dressed in complete, screaming defiance of the Gardnerian dress code. Instead of a tunic, she wears a tight black top, laced haphazardly up and down her back. The lacing makes room for wings that are ragged and torn, making her seem like a crow that has suffered a run-in with a clawed predator. She wears pants like a boy and large, clunky boots, and her hair is chopped very short, standing out at odd angles in greasy-looking black spikes. Her eyes are darkly rimmed with black kohl, making her pale green eyes seem almost as white and soulless as those of the girls in Valgard. Unlike Winter, whose wings are low and now folded discreetly behind her, Ariel seems to be making a show, flapping her wings menacingly. She crouches over as if dodging a blow, her eyes narrowed and angry, scanning the room darkly. Again, this goes back to the whole point that Ariel was in a sanatorium. She was abused. She's like this because people made her like this. This is not her fault. And how else are you going to describe her if she's been through all that suffering? I mean, she's not going to be a girl that has beautiful flowing wings and gorgeous hair and everything like that. Like, we need to give a proper description on what kind of girl she is. There's a moment in the book where I think Elrond really starts to begin to try to grow and understand the different races. And it happens when the teacher is just really rude to Ariel because she's an it girl. So it starts on page 309. And the teacher's name is Mage Clinman. And he does not look at other people that are the low races. So when Ariel shows up in the class, he asks, "For what reason do you interrupt my class, Ariel Haven?" So his voice is calm and everything, but he's not looking at her. And this really gets to Ariel. So Ariel says, they said I'm too smart for the class I was in. So here's where it really begins. She thrusts out a piece of parchment at Mage Clinman. He must have seen it out of the corner of his eye. His lip twitched, and he turned farther away from her. "And how do I know you did not fool your professor in some way, it girl?" he asked, almost sounding bored. "I'm told that you're kind of very crafty." He smiled at this, still not looking at her. "I'd seen people avert their eyes from Ariel in winter before, but only as they passed, never during conversation. It was strange in the meeting and filled me with an intense discomfort." "You should look at me," Ariel cried, her pockmarked face reddening, her hands balling in a tight fist. "Excuse me? I'm talking to you. You should look at me." Professor Clinman sniggered lightly. "And why exactly is it so important that I look at you?" He eyed the other scholars as if they all shared an inside joke she was excluded from. "Because I'm talking to you," she cried, her eyes blazing with humiliation. This prompted outright incredulous laughter from some of the Gardnerian scholars. Professor Clinman seemed to be valiantly trying to ward off a smile. Now, Icarol, to look at you would be against my religious beliefs. You're well aware of that. It's not a personal slight, and it would be foolish of you to take it as such, so you shouldn't let your feathers get all ruffled." His eyes shot up to the Gardnerian's forearm, twinkling, and the scholars obliged him by breaking out into polite laughter, everyone studiously continuing to avert their eyes from Ariel. Ariel flinched back as if struck, then turned and stormed out of the room. So Elrond here, she half rises in her seat. She wants to go after Ariel, but she remembers Ariel hates her, so she sits back down. She doesn't feel like Ariel wants to talk to her. And that's not her fault. And then she just watches it. Everybody laughs except for Ivan, and they both look at each other, and they're seeing each other for the first time. And Elrond sees for the first time that, this wasn't supposed to happen. Ariel didn't deserve that. So this really starts to bring about in her mind why she really needs to change her judgment about races and what she's known all her life. But of course, that takes some time. It's not going to happen in the span of 10 pages. Then we have a moment where Aislinn and Jared, Aislinn is Gardnerian, and Jared's Lupin. Aislinn and Jared are not supposed to be together. It's not right. And people didn't seem to understand why it was just poetry that made Aislinn suddenly want to talk to Jared. It's called a personal connection, and Aislinn wasn't sure if Jared could have any kind of connection with her, but he does in the form of poetry. So this really starts off with their relationship. And going on to another situation with Lupin and Gardnerian relationships, we have one with Jared's sister Diana and Elrond's brother Rafe. So Elrond feels very conflicted with the fact that Rafe and Diana are spending time together because she knows what would happen if, it got out. She's protective over her family and her brother. She's conflicted on what to do. She knows that it's probably not that odd because she's falling for a Celt. So, but she's just conflicted because it's family, and then what she is really supposed to know about race is not just rumors. This also brings me to when she finally learns the true history of her own race. And, people didn't like how she was listening to this being told to her, and she seemed to just brush it off and continuously deny it. But, she has known this all her life, so how is she going to immediately accept it? It's kind of like if someone close to you has died, you deny it. Deny it. And this is what Elleren's doing because, it's all that she knows. And so when she's told about her history and about what's really true about herself, she wants to think this is just a biased account, but it's not. And it takes her a while to understand that, but it really sits with her after hearing all this. Some people didn't like how there was the abuse towards the Selkie that I mentioned earlier, and it's really hard to want to go back and read that. I don't want to because it was honestly so bad, but it hit me emotionally because, I don't like reading that kind of stuff because I don't want to believe that actually happens in the real world, but it does, and people found it hard to read that, and, they didn't like how that violence turned to Elleren actually rescuing that Selkie. But, how there are plenty of books and media out there that displays different kinds of violence, and then afterward there's a rescue to rescue that person. We see it on cop shows, we see it on sitcoms, reality TV, whatever. We see it in other books too. Who's to say that Harry and Harry Potter wasn't abused and Hagrid didn't rescue him? There's different kinds of abuse, and there's always a rescue. There's rescues in real life too from different kinds of abuse as well. So it's not like it never happens. It's hard to read, I understand, but it's not good to just ignore it and, you can get emotional about it, but it happens. And sometimes that's how it happens, It takes seeing that act of violence and actually knowing for yourself to be rescued. There's another part I want to talk about too, and it is about Vogel, who is basically the new ruler of everything. Let's compare him to a certain president that the United States currently has, shall we? So his plans, whenever I read them, it just made me cringe because it seemed to mirror reality in America right now. So, Vogel wants to take land from other races. He wants to make wand fasting, immediate. You have to be wand fasted in a certain amount of days. You have to be tested for iron in your blood. So, if you're a Fae, then, you can basically get kicked out. And there's also talk about border control. And it's a lot that mirrors what is going on in America. So that brings me to the point again that this book has a lot of aspects that are in reality today. So it's not all fictional, it's placed in a fantasy world, but it's what we have here. And this is what I'm getting at with all the controversy. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind, but everything that's happening here is what we see in our world today, and we can't get away from it as much as we want to. We can't make it stop that. We can't stop it that easily. What Elleren is doing in this book is she is growing from it. She's trying to make a change. That's what I feel she wants to do. She's learning. She still has a lot more learning to do. She has a lot more growth to do in the series. All these characters do. None of these characters have learned a lot. They still need a lot more to learn, a lot more growth. I feel that after reading this book. But the way I see it, this book, sure, it has controversy, but it's controversial diversity. It's different races. I mean, it's that's what we keep wanting in books is diversity, and when we get it like this, we find it problematic, but it's probably not problematic to other people that read this book. I've seen reviews where people thought the book was really good, and they didn't see anything wrong with it. And there's people that find it very problematic and don't want to read the book anymore and just want to address their opinion. Everybody has different opinions about this book. I'm aware. This is my opinion. And this is just the way I saw it, how it's just major diversity and it's all a learning experience for our main character, Ellerin, because, she's been brought up a certain way on what she should know about her heritage, and now she's learning all this new stuff that she didn't even think was right. And it's all still sinking into her mind, even as the book ended. She's still taking it all in. She still probably question this in the next book, so I'm not going to be surprised about that, but she does have a lot more learning to do and growth, and I think she will get that as the series continues. So, just small little parts that I think should have been mentioned more is the white wand, because it's only mentioned a couple times. First when she gets it, and then it's like hidden away for basically the entire book until it's brought out in the end. And I think it should have been mentioned more because I think maybe the author kind of forgot about it as she was writing the book. I know that's happened to me before. When I'm writing a book, I'll forget about a certain thing and I'll have to go back and remember it. There's also a moment in this book where Ellerin is pretending to support Vogel by wearing her gardening clothes. She's wearing the white armband to represent his election, and I don't think that's very necessary because it wasn't there too much. I mean, I guess Ellerin felt like she needed to do that in order to play a role, but I think that really was just a filler in the book. I didn't think it was really needed. And of course, bad parts. Lucas, so I just can't talk about him. I can't do it anymore. Let's just hope Ellerin learned her lesson. So, bottom line, diversity is important. The book has it. There's conflict. But, this diversity is just blowing it out the window. It's something new. It's new diversity. And there is conflict. If there wasn't conflict with all of it, then it wouldn't be a good book, I don't think. So, then all these characters, they believe the rumors and what their family has told them. And, comparing this to reality, certain people and families are told how they should live their life, and they're not really, taking their own mind and ideas into play on how they want to live their life. So this is what these characters are doing. They're told how to live their life and how to treat people, including Ellerin. So Ellerin is actually branching away from her family in what she thought she should know, and she's becoming her own person and what she actually wants to do in life. And like I said, these characters have a lot to learn. Even Ellerin, they have a lot more growing to do. So I'm very eager to see how this growth expands in the next book. And I just, want to close this off by saying, respect other people's opinions. Not everyone's going to like the same book. There are plenty of books out there that people found problematic. Some people even found Harry Potter to be problematic. I mean, no one is going to agree on everything. Everyone's going to have different opinions. It's okay to like a book that other people did not like. It's okay to like this book. It's okay to like other books. And if you don't like the book, that's fine. If you have a problem with it, that's fine. It's all about respect. And I just wish that this community could learn to embrace that more, to learn to embrace other people's opinions more, because it's just on my side, but I don't see it as often as I think we should see it. And hopefully that'll change in the future. Maybe this video will help change it. I don't know. But it's all about respect, and hopefully we'll see that more in this community. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you watched all the way to the end, I know I kind of did word vomit, said some ums in the middle, and just kind of paused, but it's a lot in my mind. I've been waiting to get this out there, to voice my opinion about it. I did like the book, 4 out of 5 stars. I only gave it 4 stars because some parts were a bit redundant that didn't need to be in there. Some were filler chapters, but I did enjoy this book. I do want to continue the series, so I I do appreciate you watching. You don't have to read this book. I'm not trying to throw it in your face. If you don't want to read it, that's fine. If you do want to read it, that's great. So, but thank you so much for watching, and I will have a new video up soon.